Billy, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story. I think it's fair to say that life is treating you well these days. You're playing concerts in front of thousands of people with Billy Idol and with your own band, Royal Machines. And you're highly in demand as a fine art painter with sold out shows and prices for your work increasing every year. But I know that things have not always been like that. Would you take us back and share with us what got you here?
What got me here? Well, first of all, welcome to Hollywood. It's impossible to do an interview without sirens or helicopters. It's part of the charm of Hollywood. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me. Life is good, for sure. I think that, you know, in my life there's a lot of people who didn't know me back then, and they think that my life has always been like this, and it's definitely not been. It's been a very interesting, long and winding journey that I've been on. But I think that it's also a testament to hard work and making decisions, you know. Where I come from is I'm an only child, but my family was normal, whatever that means. Every family has dysfunction running through it, but I was brought up as a normal child and had a present at Christmas and went on a week's vacation every year, that kind of stuff. It was a normal family upbringing. But along the way, I took what I like to say, I took a very long narcotic holiday that ended really badly. And so the Billy Morrison, the life that Billy Morrison leads now really is only 23 years old, because I put the drugs and alcohol down 23 years ago and haven't had any since. And everything good that's happened in my life has happened since that event, putting the drugs and alcohol down.
And what was before that? You started out in the UK in the punk scene.
Well, what was before that was carnage and mayhem and chaos. You know, contrary to popular opinion, no, I didn't start out professionally in the UK punk scene. I was there when it happened. I saw lots of gigs. I wore the hair, I had the clothes, but I wasn't playing guitar. I did not do this the way most people do it. Most people get the platinum albums first, make a few dollars, and then buy the house in the hills and hibernate and shoot coke for a few years and then write a book about it. And I wasn't even clever enough to do it like that. I started using hardcore drugs when I was 15 maybe, and I stopped when I was 29. So everything that I've done professionally has been since I stopped. Nothing good happened to me while I was shooting drugs, getting loaded, you know. I did grow up in England when the punk scene happened. I was very young, but I was also very rebellious. And so I was running around trying to spike my hair up when my parents weren't looking, and trying to wear the clothes from the cool stores when my parents weren't looking, and then they would get involved and there'd be a huge argument. I'd be like, fuck you. And, you know, so rebellion started really early, and punk came along at the exact right time for me. You know, I saw the Sex Pistols on British television, and I saw the way my parents reacted to that, and a light bulb went off. I don't know what light bulb it was, but I remember going, oh, so now I see what you have to do around here to make some waves. And from my young, early teenage perspective, that was middle finger up at society, look a mess, and play 3 chords. And so when punk came along in England, that was my take from it. That's what I want to do. That, if I do that, that's going to cause everyone, well, the truth is it's going to cause everyone heartache and despair. But you don't think like that when you're 12 and 13 years old. You're just like, I just want to rebel. And in my case, I took a liking to Johnny Thunders, who's dead now, Sid Vicious, who's dead now, Keith Richards, who should be dead now but isn't. I took a liking to this skinny, zoned out. The people that I was gravitated to had eyes that said, I don't give a fuck. You know, you hear that a lot. You probably hear it in your business. I definitely hear it in my business. Oh, I don't give a fuck. The truth is, yes, you do. Yes, you do. You think you're being big, but we all give a fuck. We all want to be liked. We all want to make the right decisions to become successful and productive. And these guys, when I was 12, I would look at Sid and I would look at Johnny and I'd look at a few other guys and I'm like, they actually don't give a fuck. Now, obviously, the reason they didn't is because they all had heroin habits. But as a little kid, I wasn't putting the square peg in the square hole. I wasn't putting two and two together, and I was like, I just want that. Because they're skinny, they don't give a fuck. You can clearly see they don't give a fuck, and they're on the TV. And everyone around here thinks they're cool, so I want that. And I actively pursued that and became very good and very professional at that. Unfortunately, that doesn't get you anywhere in life.
Well, it got you to LA, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it did. I spent many years in England. I was an IV intravenous drug user. I was a mess. I was a really bad criminal. Petty crimes and just a real nasty piece of work. And in England at the time, rehab was something that you could do on the government's dime, and you just walked into one of the methadone clinics or whatever and would say, I'm a danger to society, I'm a menace to the local community, you need to put me away. And they would put you away for a couple of months maybe. And people used to use that as vacation time. Junkies used to use that as vacation time. And so I did many of those things. And in one of those things, I obviously since the time that I saw the Pistols, I wanted to be in a band. But to be in a band, you have to learn to play and put the hard work in. And no, I hadn't done any of that. But I came up with this idea, I'm going to come to LA, I'm going to be a rock star. So I announced it to the rehab. You guys are losers. I'm clean now. And I came out and I scraped together probably a couple of grand, bought a ticket, holiday visa, flew to LA, and within 48 hours I was downtown, 8th and Alvarado, shooting smack. I mean, nothing changes. You can't run away. It's an internal job, this thing. But that was one of the things I had to live through, is being a junkie here in LA, to understand that it wasn't going to end well. It really wasn't. I mean, I weighed 120 pounds. I had a beard, begging for quarters. Like I say, I wasn't Hollywood homeless. I wasn't staying on people's couches and. People used to say, well, what bands were you in? I didn't even own a guitar. I didn't own anything. I had the clothes on my back, and I lived under a piece of corrugated iron downtown, and I just begged for quarters and smoked crack and shot smack every day.
And been shot at.
And what?
And been shot at.
Yeah. I mean, that comes with the territory. I've been shot at, been stabbed. That comes with the territory, You can dabble with that shit, and a lot of people dabble with it and they get away with it. I was, as with everything, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something right, and I'm going to do something to the brink of insanity. And so when I saw all the, Sid and Johnny and Keith and all this rock star shit, I was like, I'm going to do that. And I did it better than most and more. I mean, I took it up like a profession. I've been asked, what jobs did you have? And I didn't have a job. I was a homeless junkie. I had a huge habit of both heroin and cocaine. I did nothing except rob, cheat, and steal, and shoot drugs and smoke drugs.
And then what happened?
I guess what happened, there's the term, I had a moment of clarity. The kind of fog that you live in is beyond most people's comprehension. I don't expect anyone, you know, I tell my story and lots of people nod sagely and go, oh, it must have been terrible. It was a nightmare, but it was a nightmare of my own making. But the fog is beyond description. There is no clear thought, because every waking thought is either I need money, and when you get the money, I need the drugs, and once you get the drugs, I need to get the drugs in me, which once you'd been, I mean, I was using for 14 years, your body starts to not want that shit in you, and so finding a vein or keeping it down or all those things, physical problems become real. And that is all encompassing, and that is all enveloping, it's an all enveloping existence. And so the term moment of clarity really is what it sounds like. I was granted, and I don't know why, I'm not a religious guy, but I am a spiritual guy, and I do believe that the universe is slightly bigger than me, you know? I mean, it turns tides and shit, and I can't do that. So there's something there. And I was granted a sliver of a vision, which was, you're not gonna die and have a huge procession with black horses, with plumage, and 300 of your closest friends mourning you and saying he was a great... That's not your death. Your death is behind a garbage can on 8th and Burlington with a needle in your arm, and no one knows or cares. That was the reality of the death I was facing. And from that, I made a phone call to someone. I didn't believe it was possible, but this friend of mine definitely looked a little healthier than he had done when he was shooting speedballs on my, you know, in front of me. So he must have found some way. Maybe he's found a way to smoke crack on a Friday night or socially use heroin, you know. Whatever it was, I called him, and I haven't used or drunk since that day. I'm not saying it was easy. It was very difficult, and I had to get to a point where I was done. The thing with addiction is no amount of police, parents, judges, court systems, prison sentences, none of that is going to change a fucking thing unless the person is done living like they're living. And I guess, to be honest, I didn't want to die. My choice was die. There was no way I was going to be able to maintain that. Or that was it. There was no choice. So I had this moment of clarity, and I was like, you know what? I'm done. Someone help me. And many people did.
Then the real work started to
And
build a life
God
and a
damn it,
career.
the real work then started. I mean, being a drug addict is a lot of work, a lot of hard work. But I cleaned up, and like I said, I do nothing by halves. And I made a decision that I wanted to follow my dreams. Now, dreams change, and they morph, and they grow, and one of my abilities is to follow that. I think a mistake that a lot of people make is they have this picture of how it's going to be. And I mean, the best way to make God laugh is tell him your plans. You know? You've got to be liquid. And there's no way I could have written this script. There's no way I would have said I would be in the cult and Billy Idol and form the world's biggest celebrity all-star band and become a fine art painter. I could not have written that. And I knew that then. Something inherent in me knew that you can't write this, but what you can do is the daily footwork. Every single thing about every day needs to be open to what's going to come your way, but focused in that direction. And so, you know, for the first 3 years of my sobriety, I worked at Camden Market. I was selling t-shirts to tourists. I signed a record deal, major label deal with Geffen here in the States with a band. I'd put the band together, we rehearsed, we played, we went on tour. It was a real band. And all the while, I was selling t-shirts. Now that kind of work ethic was obvious to me. It was obvious that I can't just form a band and be successful. And even when you do sign a deal, that doesn't mean you've made it. It means nothing. It's just one more hurdle. And somehow I had this inherent understanding of the business of things. And so we signed that deal. I was still selling t-shirts. You know, bills have to be paid. And there's no way I'm going to take $1 million from Geffen Records and pay my fucking bills with it when we have an album to make. And we have touring, and touring costs money. And I've always known that shit. So the hard work started, and that album actually, that didn't work, that band. Geffen actually got bought out. It was a big thing in the late 90s. But it gave me enough of a foundation, and it gave me enough of clean living in LA, because I'd been here before, you know, on the drugs, and that's not really how you want to live. But obviously our label were here, and I was flying backwards and forwards, and we made the record here in LA. And it gave me enough of a basis in the music business to understand the business, to understand Los Angeles, and to know that I needed to be here. And so I made that decision. When the band ended, I made that decision to move to LA without a band. You know, I moved here because there's sunshine and palm trees, not because some lucrative contract was in front of me. And I moved here and started putting in the footwork daily, every day.
So you did put in the 10,000 hours to get the craft
I
to work.
put in way more hours than that.
And then this was the time of the Sunset Strip with all those famous clubs.
Yeah,
Take us back to that. How was that? How did you get into that scene?
Well, when that was happening, I was still using, but as you know, LA, although it's a sprawling city, it's a very small town. And so, you know, I remember walking up the strip and seeing, you know, all the Harleys parked each side of the strip, and flyers, and guys that look like girls and girls that look like guys, and they're all in bands, and they're all handing out flyers, and Guns N' Roses playing at the Whiskey. And you know, I was slightly distracted. I was still using drugs, but I saw, for the first time since punk rock, I saw a scene. It wasn't just a band, or it wasn't just a really great album, it was a whole scene. There was a definite scene. And I had, for a little while, I was sleeping on a mattress in some guy's apartment that was in a band. And so his bandmates were, you know, it was just, I was here. And I saw the scene and wanted to be part of the scene. I mean, who doesn't want to be part of the scene, you know? But I still had a little way to go then before I woke up.
Right. And then how did you get into the actual music business after your first band?
Well, like I say, that first band, I mean, I'd been in bands, don't get me wrong, but there were bands along the way. But when you're in a band and you have a heroin habit, it's never going to go anywhere. You're never going to remember what you're doing. You can barely be anywhere because you've got to leave, because you've got to go and get some drugs. Like, it's just a mess. I don't really count that. The first band, once I cleaned up, the one that signed to Geffen, was the big learning process. It was a very big contract. And there were managers and lawyers and agents and A&R guys, and it was the whole 9 yards. And I only need to do things once to learn. I'm a very quick learner. And so I took that as my crash course. And within a couple of weeks of moving here, I'd auditioned and got the job with the Colts. And off I went, you know. A couple of years in that band, and it was a very fun time. I don't like to say, look, I guess I was in that lineup, but I'm not the Cult. You know, it's Ian Astbury and Billy Duffy. Always has been, always will be. They're the songwriters, they're the Mick and Keith of that world, and I have nothing but love and respect for Ian and Billy. I was just lucky that I got to be part of that lineup.
You played bass.
I played bass, yeah, I one and only time, and I'll never do it again. There's not enough glory in the bass guitar, and it's
Unless you're Lemmy.
Unless you're Lemmy. But it's physical as well. I mean, the bass guitar is a physical instrument. It really takes it out of you. But I'm forever grateful. It was the reunion tour, Beyond Good and Evil, and we were out all over the world, and Aerosmith, and it was great. It was fantastic. And I've known Billy Duffy since the Using days. He used to see me wandering around South London out on my head, and we knew each other, and so I'm grateful to Billy for sticking my name in the hat, and Ian and Billy for hiring me, and it was a great learning experience. Obviously it's part of my resume, but I do like to play that down because the Cult is Ian and Billy, and you have to remember that, you know.
No, that's well understood, but I think it put you, I'm hesitant to say into mainstream, but sort of as far as rock goes, it put you on the map for mainstream.
Yeah, what it did do is put me on a map in LA. I mean, but you can't not be in the Cult and living in LA and meet people. You know, we're playing Universal Amphitheatre, and you know, we're doing all these big gigs, and I was meeting people, and obviously, I felt like I was playing catch up. You know, I was starting late here. Due to all those years of narcotic haze, but I'm pretty intelligent, and I'm like, look, this is a huge opportunity for you. You're in a world-class, huge band, and I took every opportunity I could. I met people, I formed ideas, I wrote songs with other people, with Robbie Williams, with Jed Lieber, who owns the studio here, and I was in this to win it. You know what I mean? And so when my time in the Cult came to an end, that's when I formed the first incarnation of incarnation, I don't know what that is, but I formed the first incarnation of Royal Machines, which was called Camp Freddy at the time.
Yes.
And, you know, I've just tried to keep that ethos in everything I do. It's one foot in front of the other, but you're in it to win it. You've got to work hard. If you want this life, it's hard fucking work.
Like everything, if you want success.
Yeah, but so many people these days don't. They don't understand how much hard work there is involved in living a life that appears like there's no hard work. So, what is it? Tuesday. It's a Tuesday today, and I'm relaxing in mid-afternoon, being interviewed in the Sunset Marquis. People have no idea how much hard work it took to be sitting here relaxed right now, you know?
Right. So Billy, after the Cult, you had a really great idea, and you created something quite unique with Camp Freddy.
Yeah. These days there's a lot of all-star celebrity bands kind of thing, and that's fine. But back then the idea seemed pretty simple. I'd been in the Cult with Matt, and I was friends with Dave, and we all knew Donovan, and the idea was to play some music for the reasons that we all started playing music in the first place, which is fun. When your career is about units and marketplaces and agents, and it's still fun, it's still a great job, but it's still a job. And so we just all got together. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't think it was going to last past one show. And we played the opening of a hotel in LA and invited a couple of friends, literally 2 friends that were in other bands. Played a bunch of covers, and boy, did that thing take off. And after about 10 years, we changed it up slightly, and now it's called Royal Machines. line up pretty much the same. It's Josh Freese on drums, Dave Navarro on guitar, Chris Cheney on bass, Mark McGrath and Donovan Leach as the singers and MCs and hosts, and myself on the other guitar. And we have turned that thing into one of the funnest events, I think, ever.
I've seen it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we literally call our friends and they come along and we build a show based on, you know, the first couple of songs will be just me and Dave and Josh and Chris and Donovan and Mark. And then we'll bring on someone else and they'll be like, oh my God, it's so-and-so. And they'll sing a couple of songs. And then we'll bring on, you know, a bigger rock star, and then we'll bring on a guitar player, and then it just builds and builds and builds. And we've had one of the lineups that blew me away more than anything is we played this one show in Vegas, and it was Alice Cooper, Slash, Fred Durst, Paul Stanley, and Wayne Newton, all on one bill. And we've created this like behemoth all-star thing. And that's been going, it's been going for many, many years now. I love doing it. And we've managed to retain a sense of brotherhood and a sense of fun that is missing in music so much, so many times, you know?
Yeah, you can feel it when you're on stage. I mean, the atmosphere is just wow.
You can't fake that shit. That's the thing. And I'm lucky in Billy Idol, we have that same, I mean, Billy is one of the greatest frontmen of all time. Steve Stevens blows my mind, and he's been my friend for 15 years. And still every night I'm like, how does he do that? But that band has a sense of camaraderie and brotherhood, and we're all in this together that Billy feels strongly about. And I've been very lucky with that. And I see other bands that go out and hate each other and they got to do it to pay the bills. And I, you know, that's fine. But Royal Machines was created as an antithesis to that. And we've somehow retained that on every show we do. It's still fun, and still that's why it's a true band. When you look at Royal Machines playing, we're having as much fun as you are.
It's magic. I mean, it was one of the best shows I've ever been.
Thank you.
To. It's
Thank you.
Just amazing. Maybe two more people who were important in your life and are and sort of are interesting points on the timeline of your life, and especially since we're this very spot.
Oh, I know what's coming now. Yeah, I got married right there on that piece of grass with Robbie Williams as the minister.
How did that come about? Tell us.
I was friends with Robbie for a long time, and me and Rob came out here a few times each year, once a year for a few years, and we would stay in that villa up there. We loved the Sunset Marquis, and we were best mates. And I met a girl, you know, boy meets girl, get married, right? But I was making a record. I was recording here, and we literally took a break from the recording session, and we came up here. Rob got invested on the internet in the Universal Life Church or Universal Ministries, which apparently is legal, because I went and did it, and I married Corey Taylor from Slipknot. That's on YouTube. You can go and look at that one. But anyone can become a minister, so we got married. But we forgot to tell parents, and Rob's wedding gift to us was front page of Hello magazine worldwide. And so when that hit the newsstands, we were answering the phones going, yeah, we got married. So we had to have another wedding for the parents. But yeah, I got married right here. A lot of history in this hotel.
Seems so. So after Robbie Williams, another British guy, you already hinted Billy Idol. And that is like bringing it all full circle. You know, the two punk guys from the UK coming together in LA. How did that happen?
Well, you couldn't write that. Look, when I was about 12, 13, I used to not go to school and go and see Generation X play. Generation X and the Sex Pistols were my two favourite punk bands of all time. And I loved Generation X. So for me to end up being in Billy's band for now 10 years nearly, and to have written an album with him and Steve, it still blows my mind when I talk about it. I will be, first of all, forever in Steve's debt, because Steve Stevens, he'd guested with Camp Freddy, and we were friends and we got on. And he was the one that went to Billy. They'd never had two guitars. And he was the one that went to Billy and said, I think we should. They'd taken a long break after the last album, and they were gearing up, and it was gearing up for a big one, right? And he went to Billy and he said, I think we should have two guitar players. So I'll forever be in Steve's debt for that. And obviously, I think being an addict like I am, one of the traits of alcoholism and addiction is that you've always got a voice going, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. So I went through the motions, and the first couple of years of being in that band were hard on me, because I'm in a band with the most iconic punk rock singer, an MTV superstar, and one of the greatest guitar players the world's ever seen. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Steve Stevens is one of the world's greatest guitar players we've ever had.
And nicest guys.
And nice guy. And then me. And like a little junkie from South London, and I'm like, this is not fucking happening. And Steve would walk over and he'd play an insane riff, and he'd just calmly go, why don't we duet on that bit? Play it a third above. I'm like, dude, you're Steve Stevens. I can't play that. But he has always had faith in me, and he's always pushed me. And for sure, my attitude as a professional guitar player changed from being in Billy Idol's band. I would always be self-deprecating. I would always put myself down. And through the years of being in Billy's band and playing with Steve and the rest of the guys, you know, I'm no Slash, I'm no, Jeff Beck, but I do my job really well, and there's a particular thing to being a rhythm guitar player. And the main thing is not to want to be the guy in the spotlight. I've always wanted to be Malcolm Young over Angus Young. I've always wanted to be Steve Jones over Mick Jones. You know what I mean? Yes. I want chunk and balls, and I want to be the bedrock that allows the Navarro and the Stevens and the Slash to go out there and do their thing. That's not for me. And I think that's one trick, is to know who you are and who you're not.
So we could say, through waking up, through a lot of determination and an incredible lot of hard work, you have arrived and you've earned your spot.
I wouldn't deny that I've earned my spot. I've worked. Anyone that knows me well would the first word would be, to describe Billy Morrison, hardworking. I work from morning, noon, and night on everything that I do, and I think, personally, I think it's true in any business, especially creative businesses, and I'm talking about startups. Poets, filmmakers, technology. It tends to be, they think it's going to come to them on a plate. At the first sign of real hard work or something not going according to that, that plan I was talking about, this is how it's going to be. People just stop. They give up. And it's like, no, you've got to be fluid. The music business changed a million times. The film business has. All those businesses change and grow, and you've got to be able to be fluid with those changes and keep working, keep pushing forward. And tenacity is one of my greatest assets. You ain't getting rid of me.
What a great story.
Thank you.
And what a great inspiration for those out there who still have way to go. And we couldn't have staged that better, because tonight it's all going to come together at the Sunset Strip. Tonight your two favorite bands are coming together at the Roxy.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to go to the rehearsal yesterday, and first of all, I was the only man in the room other than the band themselves that had actually seen both bands. Basically, half of Generation X and half of the Sex Pistols are going to be playing tonight, and yeah, you know, I am not jaded enough yet to not revert to being a 13-year-old kid tonight. So yeah, I'm excited.
So you get to enjoy and you get to relive your life, and
Yep.
it's all going to come together in a beautiful song tonight.
Full circle.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.